First of all, I would like to say good afternoon, teacher and everyone here. We are from Group 2. Today's video presentation is under the topic of environmental problem. This is our group member. They have Lina, Ratha, Thyda, Rania, and me. And here's our content. We're gonna talk about three main points. The first one is about global warming and climate change. They're talking about cause and effect presented by me and Linda. And the second point is about land pollution. They're talking about nuclear waste, solid waste, pesticide. They're presented by Ratha and Thyda. And the last main point is about water pollution and its conclusion, which is presented by Rania. So before we find out the cause and effect of global warming and climate change, we have to know its definition first. For global warming, it refers to increasing in the average temperature of the Earth's atmosphere, or we can say that our Earth is getting hotter. And climate change refers to significant long-term change in the global climate. For example, tropic storm, rising of temperature, melting of ice, and rising sea levels. And all of these are the model of climate change and global warming that happening on our Earth. And this is all of the cause that we have find out that cause global warming and climate change. They have greenhouse gases, industrial activity, mining, agriculture activity, deforestation, variation in the sun intensity, and the last point is Earth's own feedback loop. Yes, greenhouse gas is the main reason for global warming and climate change. The main gas that respond for the greenhouse gas include carbon dioxide, methane, nitrous oxides, water vapor, and other gases. So increasing of the amount of greenhouse gases even by nature and human-made, particularly increased temperature in the atmosphere. Human activity actively increase amount of greenhouse gases in the atmosphere, such as use of fossil fuels, mining, deforestation, and agriculture, and so on. So, on the other hand, water vapor is the most greenhouse gas in the atmosphere, and it also involves the climate change as well. It cools the earth warmer by insulating and keeps the sun heat from escaping outer space. And this is the second cause. As we can see, the industrialization are more active than in the past. It responds for the population growth and the need of change for development. Since the industrial revolution started, humans started to burn fossil fuels such as coal and petroleum for energy. The purpose is they want to produce electricity for all the industrial process. It also includes the productivity of goods and other material. All of the activity actively release carbon dioxide into atmosphere. And mining also is another reason behind global warming and climate change. The more population grows, the more energy needed. People not only just need fossil fuel to produce energy, but they also increase the mining activity to gain more resources and in order to produce more energy. Since the population grows repeatedly and uncontrollable, the demand for energy resources are highly increasing as well. They mine material in order to construct roads, generate electricity, and improve quality of human life. Moreover, mining often involves with like diesel, truck, and ladder running around, which produce and emit carbon dioxide in atmosphere. Agriculture is one of the major contributors to climate change. The worldwide agricultural system production are more sustainable since its starting of the Green Revolution. The reason is that they want to maintain food security that responds for the growing of the population. And they have 16% of methane and greenhouse gas is produced by livestock. This is the animal that stay in the farm, such as sheep and cattle. In fact, agriculture accounts for 16% of our overall greenhouse gases emission, and the amount of methane released by livestock grazing a large scale contributes significantly to the global warming. And large-scale agriculture not only produce greenhouse gas, but they also manage and clear land, and this is reduce the amount of forest that is beneficial to our ecosystem. And another concern regarding to global warming and climate change is deforestation. Plant and trees, as I previously stated, play an important role in controlling the climate and attain the quality of air via breath by taking carbon dioxide from the air and then it releases oxygen back into environment. So you know that one completely grow up tree absorb up to 48 pounds of carbon dioxide per year, but unfortunately between 6.5 and 7 billion trees are cut down every year. That's why the quality of air increasingly polluted, and the climate have been changing repeatedly and unpredictably. People, on the other hand, are more likely to um, be unconcerned about the benefit. But even if they have someone that they are aware of its benefit, but they are powerless to act and do concern. Variation in the sun intensity. You know that our Earth receives its warmth from the sun, but you have to be aware that it was also the reason that make our climate change and cause global warming. The amount of energy coming from the sun seems like it increased a lot over the years, and now it becomes human consuming. So according to a research published by NASA in 2008 talking about global climate change, they say that the planet average surface temperature have risen roughly 2 degrees Fahrenheit, that is about a little than 1 degree Celsius, and global temperature was greater than 1.8 degree Fahrenheit about the late 19th century. So 1.8 degree Fahrenheit wasn't much, right? But you have to know that the recent increase in average temperature only a few degrees, but it already influenced worldwide weather pattern. So today, what about it? Our planet is warming at significantly faster rate than it did before. So in the future, if the current rate of the warming is not slow and continue faster like in this in the currently, the Earth will become hotter in the few decades. And this is the last cause of global warming and climate change. It is Earth's own feedback loop. And here's the definition. The feedback loop means the effect of an initial process called change in second process, and then it feedback to the original change and influence it further. Feedback loop come in two flavors. It have positive and negative. A positive feedback loop refers to increase the effect in the chain and reduce instability. And a negative feedback loop, it reduce the effect and chain and help maintain the length. In this case, the positive and negative name of the loop do not indicate whether it is bad or good. So let me give you some examples about feedback loop in climate change. Yes, it is examples about positive feedback and negative feedback about climate change. So look at the first picture that I draw. So when increase of atmospheric of carbon dioxide, then it will leave atmosphere warmer and more sunlight. Then uh, it will cause our ocean warmer too because the ocean they absorb sunlight. When the temperature in ocean change, um, it will lead our polar ice melt. But you know that polar ice they function as the reflection. It reflects light back to the outer space before it have a change on at the surface. So when the polar ice increasingly melt, then it will have a less light reflected. Then then it will amplify the earth warmer to the original state. Back to the negative feedback. It also like the same examples about climate change. So when carbon dioxide are increasing, the process of photosynthesis are more active too. And the definition of photosynthesis is the process that they capture sunlight to produce oxygen by plants. So if they have a greater plant on our Earth, it will produce more oxygen in the atmosphere. Then back to the original one, it will decrease the amount of carbon dioxide in the air. And this is the reason and cause of climate change and global warming. I will give the floor to Linda.
Hello everyone, welcome to my part which about effect of global warming and climate change. Global warming and climate change are projected to affect regions in different ways. Some areas experience heavier rain while other regions got drier. Some experience increased water availability and crop yields, but others are expected to experience decreased water availability and a reduction in crop yield. So now I will raise the concerns of global warming and climate change to tell everyone. One of the most visible consequences of a warming world is an increase in the tendency and frequency of extreme weather events, since when temperatures are rising too much will cause drought. Drought, heatwave, and the events of extreme weather. For drought, climate change contributes to it because warmer temperatures enhance evaporation, which reduce surface water and dry out soils and vegetation. This makes periods with low precipitation drier than they would be in cooler conditions, and climate change is also altering the timing of water availability. Heatwaves are periods of unusually hot weather, typically lasting for 2 or more days, outside the historical average for a given area. In the past, heatwave has happened just in a short time, but now climate change is making heatwave longer, more extreme, and more frequent. We know this by observing the new daily high and low temperature records. Daily temperatures are measured at hundreds of weather stations around the globe. For example, in the United States, high and low records at weather stations were set at about the same rate in the 1950s, but since the late 1960s, the number of record daily high temperatures measured each year has been increased at a faster rate than record daily low temperatures. Ice will melt when it's hot, right? So when the global temperatures are high, melting ice cap will cause a sea level rise. As sea level rise, some island countries as well as some various islands coasts are likely to disappear, and low-lying coastal areas will become increasingly vulnerable to storm and flooding. For example, the Arctic sea melt season was at the lowest level since satellite measurement began in 1979, but in just 2 years, from 2005 to 2011, sea ice plummeted from 2.14 million square miles to 1.65 million square miles. It was a 23% drop, and based on the National Snow and Ice Data Center 2001, said that the Arctic Ocean in summer could be ice-free by 2030. According to IUCN, climate change currently affects at least 10,967 species on the IUCN Red List of threatened species, increasing the likelihood of their extinction. Climate change interacts with threats such as habitat loss and overharvesting to further exacerbate species decline. For instance, U.S. Geological Survey 2007 predicted that the entire polar bear population of Alaska may be extinct in the next 43 years. Another thing is that the effect of climate change on the smallest species can threaten ecosystem and other species across the food chain. For example, increased ice melt and ocean acidification in the Arctic Ocean is reducing krill populations, threatening the survival of whales, penguins, and seals that depend on krill as a primary food source. Since they don't have any krill to eat, so how can they survive? As the result, they will die and extinct. Last but not least, increased heavy rain and flooding caused by global warming contribute to the spread of disease. There are two communicable diseases spread by floods, which are waterborne disease and vector-borne diseases. Waterborne diseases are the ones caused by pathogenic microbes spread via contaminated water. Since floods transport bacteria, parasites, and viruses into the clean water system, and when people drink the water without sinking and boil it properly, it will lead them to have a disease like typhoid fever, cholera, and more. The flood may indirectly lead to an increase in vector-borne disease that result from an infection transmitted to humans and other animals by blood-feeding arthropods such as mosquitoes, ticks, and fleas. Standing water caused by heavy rainfall or overflow of rivers can act as provide shelter breeding ground for mosquitoes that carry a variety of diseases, and therefore enhance the potential for exposure of disaster-affected population and emergency workers to infections such as malaria and vaccine fever. With the warming of the planet, mosquitoes are now living in the area which they previously was not to be found, placing more people at risk of acquiring one of the diseases carried by the insects. Since the global warming is a topic of concern not only to the countries around the globe, but also in our country, our group has found out one case study which talk about the Netherlands Development Organization helping Cambodian farmers using climate-smart technology to adapt to the climate change. Even Cambodia's contribution to the greenhouse gas emission is small, but Cambodia is one of the most vulnerable countries to climate impacts such as flood and droughts. Since of the four top economic sectors, garment, tourism, construction, and agriculture, the adverse impacts of climate change include increased risk of poor yields or even crop failure. In the case study, they interviewed the farmer who faced the problems. Mr. Keltat, vegetable farmer from Basak Commune, Svay Rieng province, said that earlier the weather in my village was good, but now it's not because of deforestation and the increase of factories and machine use. It affects other farmers and my farming too. There won't be any food to eat if it's dry and the farming production will reduce. To enable farmers to adapt to the climate change, SNV had created a project called Climate Smart Agriculture. The purpose of the project is to help farmers cope with drought and floods by using technology. To cope with drought, SNV partnered with two local organizations, Cambodia Farmer Association, Federation of Agricultural Producers, and Ideas at Work to introduce pond lined with tarpaulin. They can hold a lot of water and align with tarpaulin to minimize sea spec and reduce water loss. And farmers no need to worry about the water in the dry season. To optimize the benefits of the pot and reduce labor, they also suggest farmers to have auto-way pump so that the pond water can be pumped into the tank or be used directly to the water gardens. Because the tank is raised, it supports irrigation by gravity, which means a drip system can be easily incorporated. After adopting those smart technologies, Mr. Keltat said that from the day I have had this line pot and pump, it's easy to grow and care for my vegetables. This reduces the labor cost needed and save time. Only one person needs to pump the water to the gardens. Before I use old habits, taking a lot of time and getting lower result. I can use the pond water for animals to drink, to wash clothes, and raise fish. To deal with flooding, raised bed gardens were introduced for 10 pilot farmers. The garden can be built from different materials including timber, wood, bricks, and bamboo. A mixture of soil, compost, and lime is used to fill the garden. After using bed garden, Mrs. Ansaran said that I can grow both seasons without worrying about the floods and drought. When it rains, the raised bed gardens remove the excess water through the hole in the bricks. And in the dry season, I can use the stream system to water so I don't have to worry about lack of water or carrying water to pour in my vegetables. The bed also save water and control the fertilizer, and I can easily tend the feed. Overall, even all these smart technologies are helpful, but it also has some impact towards some farmers. For smallholder farmers, they face challenges in obtaining loans from financial institutions, which often consider them high-risk borrowers and don't factor production pattern into long term. Therefore, the development of financial products recognizing the realities of smallholder farming system should be prioritized. And both raised bed gardens and robot farms are excellent examples of labor-saving technologies that can be particularly useful for women and elder vegetable growers. And the technologies help women cope with their domestic life. And that's all of my point. Let's move to my next member. Thank you.
Now let's continue to my part about land pollution. Yes, first of all about this part, I would like to ask you guys a question that what is land pollution? Of course, land pollution refers to the deterioration of the Earth's land surface at and below ground level that often directly and indirectly as a result of human activity and their misuse of land resources. And generally, land pollution has covered with three elements such as nuclear waste, solid waste, and pesticides. Yes, and you guys will see the detail of this main point one by one. And for now, I will talk about the first element of it is nuclear waste. Nuclear waste is the radioactive waste which produced by nuclear reactor or leftover from research project, medical use, and the manufacture of nuclear weapons. When talking about nuclear waste, you guys should know that there are three types of it that is generated from nuclear facility and is classified according to its radioactivity, such as low-level waste, intermediate-level waste, and high-level waste. For low-level waste, it contains 90% of total waste, including clothing, filter, paper, and other material which exhibit only 1% of total radioactivity potential. And for intermediate level waste, it contains 7% of total waste, including steel machinery with the reactor, filter, and some byproduct of nuclear reprocessing. And it represents 4% of radioactive potential, and it does require some shielding after disposal. And one last type of nuclear waste is high-level waste that contains 3% of total waste and mostly the use of nuclear fuel. And even if the high-level waste is only 3% of the total nuclear waste volume, but it represents until 95% of radioactive potential. And moreover, it require cooling as well as shielding of nuclear waste after disposal. Okay, now after knowing the type of nuclear waste, I would like to draw your attention to take a look at the three main effects of nuclear waste. And the first effect of it is about two persistent health effects. You know, the exposure of radioactive compound can cause serious health problems or even death for humans and as well as for all kinds of animals. And the main issue of radioactive compounds is that they are likely to cause many diseases such as cardiovascular disease, disease of the nervous system, gastrointestinal disease, diabetes, and especially cancer, which are in turn to kill majority of people each year. And moreover, the exposure to nuclear substance have been found that it can change our DNA and to alter the gene of our future generation as well. Besides about, do you know, even the pregnancy who are being near and observes much of the radioactive effect, they are also able to have a lot of percentage to give disability childbirth to their children also. Okay, then move to another effect, which is the effect of nature. Well, besides the effect of health, nuclear waste has a significant adverse effect of nature because the radioactive waste is often stored in a remote place and in the deep sea level, which are the living space for many animals and biodiversity. And for those animals may become contaminated with radioactive material and those suffer from that consequence. And moreover, it may also change the gene structure of animal and plant, which may result in turn to hurt and suffer human beings through the way of food supply.
So, good afternoon everyone. I'm Thyda and I'm responsible for explaining to you about solid waste and pesticides. First off, I'm gonna start with solid waste. Well, solid waste is basically trash or rubbish that consists of things we don't need anymore and we decided to throw it out, discard it, or get rid of it. And solid waste also comes in many forms, including agricultural waste, industrial waste, construction waste, household waste, e-waste, so on and so forth. These are considered to be pollutants because most of solid waste contain liquid substances in them, and when it leaks it will contaminate the land, the soil, or sometimes even seeps into water, and it will eventually end up in our food and causing bad smells. Overall, it causes bad smells when there's waste. Like when you walk past a pile of trash, you will surely smell like the sour smell of it, and it will like totally ruin the atmosphere and the environment of that place. So now let me avert your attention to the term e-waste, which could sound familiar or unfamiliar to some of you guys. The term of e-waste refers to electronic waste that you no longer find useful and you want to throw it out. For example, your broken laptop, your glitching phone, your old TV. Basically, everything that runs on electricity that you want to get rid of is an e-waste. E-waste problem is quite serious these days because it is currently the fastest growing waste, and only 10% of it ends up getting recycled, while 90% of it ends up in landfill. I know landfill is for dumping trash, but what if it exceeds the limit of the space provided? Also, e-waste contains dangerous substances that are toxic and harmful to both humans and the environment, such as lead, mercury, barium, PCBs, and more. And if those substances leaked into the environment, it would seep into soils and groundwater, and it will contaminate the land, the water, and would eventually end up in our drinking water as well. So now let's look at the problem as a whole, as how it affects the environment and also our health. If you live in an undeveloped area where there is no proper waste management, such as garbage truck, or even worse, living near landfills, you will most definitely have the worst experience because solid waste, just as it's done its damage to the image of the city, it also damages your health as well, sometimes quite severely too. And it's a place for fly, disgusting insects, and if it lands on your food, you will get diarrhea from it. Not to mention waste that contain toxic substances such as e-waste will surely give you chronic disease such as organ failure, heart attack, or liver diseases. So basically it's harmful, and it also pollutes the water we drink, the air we breathe, and the animal life in that area as well, not just us humans. So now let me cover another point, which is pesticide. I'm sure you guys have heard of it before, or if you haven't, it's basically a substance that people usually spray on their crops to kill pests and prevent it from ruining their crops. Pesticides are considered to be hazardous waste and also pollutant because they pollute water, soil, and air as well. Here's the harmful effect of pesticide on our health, not just the environment. When sprayed on the crop, the substance pollutes soil, groundwater, and even ends up in our drinking water sometimes. When consumed, it will cause serious health problems such as asthma, the disease where we can't properly breathe or we can't breathe at all, cancer, and even death. It serves as a double-edged sword for killing pests, but what we don't know is that it is also slowly killing the consumer as well. It causes serious health problem. Pesticide is not that good, if it can't kill bugs, it surely can kill us as well, just matter of time. And even worse case, cows and many other animals who directly eat the crops, after being sprayed by pesticide, they will receive an instant death. And this right here is a real life example of how dangerous pesticide actually is. A mysterious event happened in Stung San City, Kampong Thom province in Cambodia, where 20 cows were laying dead around the rice field, along the stream, and also along the road. And after proper examination done by expert, it was announced that the cow were poisoned by pesticides. Apparently, those cows, they consume food and water that have leftover pesticide substances in them when the owner of the rice field sprayed it on his crops to kill pests. And another one is the same example but with different place, where the cow also died from consuming food with pesticide substances in the farm in Ratnagiri. You guys can, read more about this news on Khmer Time News, and I'll drop the link at the end of the slide. And thank you so much for paying attention to my part, and now I'll give the floor to my teammate to present her part.
Hello everybody, I'm Rania. I'm going to explain next about water pollution. Water pollution is the water which is being polluted by some kinds of harmful substances that people release into the water, including pesticide, vehicle exhaust, acid rain, oil spills, and from industrial, military, agricultural waste, and sewage. In developing countries, have the most severe problem with water pollution because people there lack of education in using safe water. They dumped all kinds of trash and poison substances directly into the river, lakes, and sea, and then they collect the water back to drink and bath, which had an effect on people's health and environment. Now, let's move on to the next part that talk about the effect of water pollution. As I have said above, about harmful substances. Did you know that when all of these chemicals are released into the water, it can harbor a lot of kinds of bacteria and cause our kidney, liver, and lung damage, as well as cancer, childhood leukemia, and birth defects. And according to the UN, children under 5 years old, around 297,000 die every year because of these problems. Moreover, because of this chemical, marine life habitat has been destroyed and they cannot live more longer. If they have to deal with their life like this on and on, one day it can wipe out entire species, and humans will not have enough food storage. As for example, if we compare our life to marine life, we live in a full of plastic and trash, and you never clean your house even once. In a way, you will be sick and die in the future. So, people throw away trash in the water every day, and we cannot imagine what their life would be like. Now, let's move on to the next part, which is about environment around Stammenjay district. The environment around Stammenjay area in this picture show us what people, their life is like and their behavior. Around their house, a pile of trash and water look so dirty because their living conditions are so poor and they cannot move out to another places. In addition, they don't know how to clear all of this trash, so they have to survive living surrounded by trash and smells, especially in the rainy seasons. This black water that everyone like us feeling disgusted by will be decreased and flood in their house. What do you think about this situation? Do you think they will be moved out to somewhere else for a while or live in their house with this water? From what I have seen, they continue living in their house like this, and I saw their children play along, having fun with this water as well. And their parents also catch the fish for food for the stomach in this water as well. So fish that live in this water is bad for their health and it contains chemical pollutants. So please, before you throw away your trash out of nowhere, please remember this place. to know how much this affects their life. Even their food is bad for their health.
Move on to the last slide of our group presentation, which is the conclusion part. So our group kindly have some suggestions to improve environmental problems. The first point is save energy at home. Much of our electricity and heat is powered by coal, oil, and gas. Use less energy to help save our planet. Next is walk, cycle, or take public transport. This has reduced greenhouse gas. Third is eat more vegetable. It is important lower environmental impact. Fourth, we need to minimize our use of fossil fuel and focus on developing alternative sources of energy such as the sun, wind, and water. And recover our plants by encourage people to plant more trees by knowing the importance of planting trees. And the next point is the government should find to rectify the nuclear waste. And next is cycling and try to reduce throwing out trash and try to use the reusable products. Our group presentation is come to the end. Thank you everyone for paying attention to our group presentations.
And here's our reference, you can check it out. Thank you.